And what this does is this variable now represents every input field that we have before this checkbox. So every password field that we have on our page. So now that we've done that, we can use this to obtain the value of the checkbox, so the password that the user has typed, the type of the checkbox, which is important because we need to switch between text and password type. As I explained at the start of the tutorial, we're replacing these. We then need to grab the name, ID and class attributes from this field in order to actually retain them and place them back inside our password field when we don't show the password. So let's go ahead and first of all obtain the value. So I'm going to create a new variable called value, and this is equal to prev.val. Remember, this is the same as writing this here. So essentially I've created this previous variable just in order to cut down having to go this.prev.val every single time. So I'm just using this previous.value here, and it just makes it a lot cleaner, and we're using, you know, the same object over and over again. Okay, so now we want to grab the type of the field. So var type, and this is going to equal prev.attribute. So we're grabbing an attribute from the current field, and that's type. Now this value is either going to be a text or password because we're switching between the two, and we use this to determine the toggle between the text and the password. We're not really using any jQuery toggle functionality, but we're doing this ourselves by creating a new type and switching between the two. So this is an extremely important part of the code. So now we're going to just take some attributes from the original password field that may exist, and we may want to go ahead and replace back into the text field first of all, and then the password field again. So we want to sort of switch these attributes, or keep these attributes when we switch the type of the field. And because we're not switching the type of the field, we're just replacing it, that means they're all the more important. So I'm going to say var name is equal to, again, prev.attribute, and this is just name. We then need an ID. We need to obtain the ID, which is the attribute ID, and then lastly the class as well. So prev.attribute class. Now you may want to go ahead and extend this list depending on what values you want to supply in this password field. For example, if you wanted to keep or wanted to use a max length, for example max length 10, inside here you would have to then go ahead and say max length equals, you know, prev.attribute and then max length. So you'd want to go ahead and take each one that you feel like you might be able to use. So because you're following along the tutorial, you can see how it works, and you can go ahead and modify this accordingly. So this is extremely important. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is just go ahead and say prev.remove. And we're going to leave it at that for now and just go over to our browser and check what this is doing. So we already know what this is doing, and we've seen the checkbox being added. But once we click the checkbox, we want to remove the previous item, and you'll see how that works in just a moment. So I'm going to click here, and you can see that the input field, the password field, has been deleted. It's been removed from our DOM. And the reason we want to do this is we then want to create just before this element here, this checkbox element, we want to create a new field, but with the type text, using these same attributes, hence moving the attributes to a different element. So now that we've removed the previous object, which was the input field password, we want to go ahead and actually add a new field. So we want to go ahead and say this dot before, and in here we're essentially going to construct our new field with a different type, and that type will be text. So let's go ahead and just outline our input field as we usually would. So input type equals something, and this is going to be text. We then want to go ahead and replace all of the attributes that we had that we've picked up here that existed in the original password field, because remember that was removed, so we need to reobtain and reinitiate I guess the attributes. So the first one will be value. This is actually extremely important because we obviously want to retain the value that the user's typed in order to display it in plain text format. So we can go ahead and append on the value here. So we're just starting this string here and then appending on the value and then ending that there. We then want to obviously retain the name of the field, which is more important than not because the user might have specified a particular name that they want to go ahead and pick up in some kind of back-end script. So the name again is name, we just use this variable that we picked up here. Then we want to use reinitiate an ID as well. So this will be ID. And then finally we want to reinitiate a class or add this variable back in. So we just specify class in here. So quite a long line, but if you're used to concatenating in languages, you'll understand the need for the plus sign. We're just appending these values inside the where they should be. And now we're ready to preview the changes. Now we're not completely done here because we need to find a way to actually go ahead and change this back to a password field if the checkbox is unticked. So at the moment we have the functionality that we require. However, we can't revert the field at the moment back to the original state, and that's pretty straightforward. It might not seem like it's straightforward. We might seem like we would have to say duplicate all this code, but we don't. So we'll go ahead and test this out, and then we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to type a password in here, and I'm going to go ahead and click show password. Now it obviously, like at the start of the tutorial, you could see the functionality and it looked like we'd just magically shown the password, but what's actually happened is following this along, we've removed the original field and created a new field, but this time this field here has type text instead of type password. But obviously now we've got the problem that when we uncheck, the plain text remains.